You're listening to the Health and Happiness Podcast with Travis Kemper and
Lauren Maxwell. Each episode, we share easy to implement strategies to improve your health, happiness, and overall quality of life.
Everything becomes a little different as soon as it is spoken out loud. Herman Hesse. How's it going, Travis?
Great. The bathroom's almost done, so that's exciting. Yeah, which means the whole upstairs will be done, and then we just have to do like the flooring and the trim in the stairwell because I already painted the stairwell.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
so
an accomplishment. Good job.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And my bike just got finished being tuned up at REI, so I got to go pick that up today so I can stop driving my truck a whole 2 miles to work each day.
Nice.
Dad's leaving Pennsylvania tomorrow to head out for archery season. And I've been refocusing on my meditation practice because I got a little lazy on it. And interestingly, I've noticed I'm like it's so beneficial. Like I'm definitely like a happier person, but also my resting heart rate is down My resting heart rate is down 4 beats per minute over the last 2 weeks.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's super cool. Yeah, I'm back down to the 40s, which is nice.
Very cool. Way to go, Travis.
How's it going, Lauren?
It's going good. We ordered workout mats for our garage gym, and I'm super excited about it because we've been working out on a yoga mat on concrete, and it is not very nice to my knees or my back right now. So the mats are supposed to come in on Tuesday. Our goal is Our goal is to turn one part of the garage into like the main gym area and then another part of the garage into a dance studio. So once our workout mats come in, the next thing we want to do is get some mirrors because it's really hard to like teach yourself how to dance if you can't see yourself. It's like a language, like you have to learn like what your body is actually doing. Right now I've been dancing without a mirror for a long time and like I feel like I'm getting better, but like there's absolutely no way to know unless I were to record myself, and that doesn't really work because then it's like not real-time feedback. So I really want to get better.
When you figure out what mirrors you're gonna buy, send me the link because I might get some for my gym too because it also helps for lifting weights. And
it helps a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm considering entering some powerlifting competitions, which I've never done powerlifting, but I want something to push myself.
So cool.
Yeah, so the big thing is squats to make sure I can get down low enough, and deadlifts as well, because I've never really done deadlifts until the last 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. Yeah, I'll keep you posted. I've like, for the most part, worked out with like a tiny little like full length mirror that you use for like making sure your outfit is right. Yeah. But that doesn't really help me for dancing. You would have to stay in like one specific spot and that doesn't work. So yeah, I'll let you know. I'll have to do something.
Well, you just have to start dancing like in Hitch. You know, the little you're right here, Lauren. Don't go out of this box.
My goal is to move beyond the hitch.
Oh, okay. All right.
Anyway, so what are we going to talk about today, Travis?
Getting thoughts out of your head so you can hear them, which can give you a different perspective on your thoughts and help you troubleshoot your problems.
Love it. So German writer Heinrich von Kleist in 1805 describes his habit of using speech as a thinking method and speculates that if we can't discover something just by thinking about it, we might discover it in the process of free speech or speaking out loud. He writes that we usually hold an abstract beginning of a thought, but active speech helps turn the obscure thought into a whole idea. It's not the thought that produces speech, but rather speech is a creative process that in turn generates thought. So, if self-talk is so beneficial, then why aren't we doing it all the time? Or I guess I should say, if external self-talk is so beneficial, then why aren't we doing it all the time? Self-talk is often seen as a premature equivalent of inner speech, the silent inner voice in our mind, which has prominent cognitive functions in itself. The tendency to express our inner thoughts in external self-talk which is typical of children, is internalized and transforms to voiceless inner speech in adulthood, as developmental psychologist Lev Vygotsky speculated in the 1920s. Vygotsky's view stood in opposition to a competing one from the psychological school known as behaviorism, which saw children's self-talk as a byproduct of supposedly less competent minds. However, the internalization of self-talk isn't necessarily evidence of cognitive maturity. Rather, it could represent the degeneration of an essential cognitive skill in the face of social pressure. The sociologist Irving Goffman noted that self-talk, external self-talk, is taboo because it is, quote unquote, a threat to intersubjectivity and violates the social assumption that speech is used only for communication with others. So basically, people are really uncomfortable with talking to themselves in front of other people.
Yeah, that's a very strong argument for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think it makes a lot of sense too. And I also think that in general, we can learn a lot from kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how they act. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Benefits of external self-talk. Self-talk enjoys certain advantages over inner speech, even in adults. First, silent inner speech often appears in a condensed and partial form. We often tend to speak to ourselves silently using single words and condensed sentences. Speaking out loud, by contrast, allows the retrieval of thoughts in full, using rhythm and intonation that emphasize the pragmatic and argumentative meaning, and encourages the creation of developed, complex ideas. Not only does speech retrieve pre-existing ideas, it also creates new information in the retrieval process, just as in the process of writing. Speaking out loud is inventive and creative. Each uttered word and sentence doesn't just bring forth an existing thought, but also triggers a new mental and linguistic connection.
Yeah, so this is actually one of a piece of advice that somebody gave me once for writer's block. That if you're staring at a piece of paper and wanting to write but having no idea what to write, rather than just sitting there and trying to think up something, actually talk about it out loud, because this theory of talking out loud brings forth new ideas. That's the whole concept behind getting out of writer's block, which I've actually found to be very helpful. I sound like a crazy person, but sometimes if I'm not even just writing journaling, but I've mentioned on this podcast before, I like to write short stories a lot of times to work out some issues that I'm dealing with, but just creatively is fun too. But I'll talk about those out loud to myself, or pretend that I'm the character and interact the dialogue with myself. Which sounds really funny, but it helps a lot with writer's block.
Speaking out loud to yourself also increases the dialogical quality of your own speech, kind of what you were just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Although we have no visible person we are addressing with self-talk, speaking to ourselves encourages us to actively construct an image of someone we are talking to and activate our theory of mind, which is the ability to understand other people's mental states and speak and act according to their imagined expectations. By forcing us to articulate ourselves more fully, self-talk summons up the image of an imagined listener or interrogator more vividly. In this way, it allows us to question ourselves more critically by adopting an external perspective of our own ideas, and so to consider the shortcomings in our arguments, all while using our own speech. If we speak out loud, it forces us to slow down our thoughts and process them differently because we engage the language centers of our brain. By talking to ourselves, we become more deliberate, and this creates a slower process to think, feel, and act, instead of being bombarded by our thoughts.
Yeah, so there are typically two types of external self-talk. Instructional self-talk, which is talking yourself through a task, or motivational self-talk, which is telling yourself, I can do this. One study researched the effects of both motivational and instructional self-talk on participants playing basketball. It found that players passed the basketball faster when they motivated themselves through the task out loud. Even how you refer to yourself when talking to yourself can make a difference, which makes sense based on some of the, negative self-talk versus positive self-talk episodes we've done. Research has found that when people talk about themselves in the second or third person, so for example, you can do this, or Lauren can do this instead of I can do this, not only do they feel less anxiety while performing, but their peers also rated their performances better. This was because of self-distancing, focusing on the self from the distance perspective of a third person, even though that person is you.
The study that found the basketball players played faster when they did the motivational self-talk. That's interesting. That also aligns with the study in the negative self-talk episode that found similar results. In that episode, participants in a biking study were told to either say, "This is hard," or "This is hard, but I can push through it." Mm-hmm. Those who added the "I can push through it" significantly outperformed the others in the task.
Yeah. Beyond motivational self-talk, talking to yourself out loud in an instructional way can speed up cognitive abilities in relation to problem solving and task performance. So for example, when you're searching for that item that you just can't find at the grocery store, talking to yourself out loud may help you find it faster. I think this is like imagining a person in a grocery store being like, where's the banana? It's just funny. But anyway.
Hopefully somebody else would be like, "Oh, that can of beans is over there. I need to try this next time that my wife sends me," because I eat very simple foods. And my wife will ask me to get these things at the grocery store, and I have no idea what they are, much less where they are.
Yeah.
So I get very confused and irritated, and I just need to say out loud, like, "Oh, I'm looking for," I don't know. I don't know what she eats. It's different stuff. I don't know. Tofu used to be one, but I figured out where that one is now.
Yeah, once you find it a couple of times, probably sticks. Unless they move it, which they do all the time. Anyway.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's in dairy, sometimes it's in like the cheese section, which is different than the dairy section, sometimes across the store. So yeah, they do play games with the tofu.
They certainly do. Well, anyway, this idea of like saying something out loud, making it easier to find, is because of the feedback hypothesis. So according to the feedback hypothesis, the name of an item and its label make you think of what the item looks like, which then helps you distinguish it from other items with different names. One study took a closer look at this feedback hypothesis. In a series of experiments, participants were asked to search for different objects in different situations. In one experiment, participants were asked to search for a picture of a specific item, like a banana, among 20 pictures of random items. Some of the participants were instructed to say the name of the object out loud to themselves. They found that when participants said the word banana before searching for a picture of one, they found the picture faster and more accurately. Saying the word out loud made the participants more aware of its physical traits, which then made the banana stand out among other objects. The caveat here, of course, is that you need to be familiar with the item. So, like, if you don't know what a papaya is and you say out loud, "Where is the papaya?" it's probably not going to help because you can't, conjure up that mental image. Instructional self-talk can be used beyond finding your lost car keys or picking out a friend in a crowd, though. The aforementioned basketball study that we talked about with the motivational self-talk also found that players passed and shot the basketball more accurately when they instructed themselves through the task out loud, suggesting that talking to yourself about what you're doing can keep you focused. The study concluded that motivational self-talk worked best on tasks based on speed, strength, and power, while instructional self-talk worked best with tasks that involved focus, strategy, and technique. So if you're not an athlete, in the real world, this might translate to parallel parking, following a recipe, or putting together an IKEA side table.
Mastering the art of talking to yourself. First, be kind to yourself. This goes back to our positive versus negative self-talk episode. Use self-talk to your advantage. Cheering yourself on before an important event or talking to yourself while completing a task are two great opportunities for self-talk. One study found that asking oneself out loud what a piece of information means significantly improved learning. A hypothesized explanation for this phenomenon is that the process of answering a question involves consolidation of information from working memory into long-term memory. You're basically effectively speeding up the learning process by acting as both the inquiring teacher and the challenged student. Lauren, this demonstrates how smart my flashcard study was in school.
It really does. It made me think of you immediately when I was reading that initially. Like, oh man, this is exactly what Travis did, and no wonder it works so well.
It does work well, but it takes forever to write all the
forever.
flashcards.
But
Yeah. An important note is don't forget to listen. Talking to yourself is a two-part process: the talking and the listening. Self-listening, also known as self-awareness, is a primary factor in offering feedback for self-efficacy. In other words, there's a reason you're feeling compelled to talk out loud, so be sure to also listen to what you're saying. Lauren, someone may be listening to this episode and thinking, everyone is going to think I'm insane if I am talking to myself. Is there another strategy that can be useful to get similar results?
Well, Ernest Hemingway famously said that writers should write hard and clear about what hurts. Although Hemingway may not have known it at the time, research has now shown that writing about what hurts can improve our mental health. So stay tuned for our next episode to see how writing can help your life. But a challenge for this week is to try to talk to yourself out loud when something is bothering you and see if you can come up with better solutions for that problem.
Great job today, Lauren.
You too, Travis. This was fun.
This was fun. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next week to talk about writing.
Yeah, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and are getting benefits from our content.
If your life is improving in part due to the information in this podcast, we would greatly appreciate you sharing the episode with your family and friends on social media and leaving us a review so we can continue to reach more people and improve the health and happiness of the community at large.
Thanks again, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast.